Hey everybody, welcome to our complete beginner's guide to the Vitruvian Plus. Today I'm going to be discussing everything you need to know about how it works, how to get started, and I think for some of you who are watching this, you might not even have a Vitruvian Plus yet, but really just want to know exactly how it works because these type of smart gyms are a big investment, and if you're going to make a big investment, you kind of want to know how it works and if it's going to be able to provide you with what you're looking for. On the other hand, if you do already have the Vitruvian Plus, but you're a little bit confused about how or where to get started or what certain modes do and the benefits of certain modes over the others, well, this video is designed to help you out. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with the Vitruvian Plus. Now, the first thing that you should know about it is it's not that heavy, maybe 50 to 70 pounds, and it's very easy to move because on this side of it, we have some wheels, and on this side where it's plugged in, we have a handle. So it's very easy to put your hand underneath and pick it up and then be able to move it with those wheels and put it down. Now, again, the side with the handle is also where the plug is, and underneath, right by the plug, is also a restart button. So the restart button is there because the Vitruvian Plus by itself, if you just leave it on for about 20 minutes or so and you don't use it, it'll just turn off by itself. And the restart button allows you to just turn it right back on without having to unplug and plug it right back into the wall. Okay, so now let's go ahead and start digging into how to use the Vitruvian and all the accessories that come with it. I'm gonna be going over all their additional accessories that come with their full package, which is something that I do really suggest because you are able to utilize so much more with the Vitruvian Plus when you have all of the tools that work with it. So let's go ahead and we're gonna start with the basic handles. So the handles, you can do pretty much anything from it, from presses to rows to deadlifts and squats. So super versatile tool, and it's very easy to attach these into the Vitruvian Plus, and all of the attachments work the exact same way. There's a little knob here, and you simply just put it in, rotate it, and it's in, and it's locked into place just like that. Super simple. Now, if you ever want to take the handle or any of the accessories out, all you have to do is there's a sleeve here where it's plugged into. You push the sleeve down and then you pull it out, and there you go. Now, in many cases, you'll be using both of these handles at the same time, but there are some cases where you'll just be using one. And there is another option where you can use both handles together, and I'm going to show you that and why that's a good option. So the Vitruvian Plus comes with this little doodad, which is a connector for these handles. And so the way to make these handles work together is you just open it up, stick each one into the little slots right here, and then you close it. Ta-da! And that's it. And then you just go ahead and plug this in to the unit like that. And there you go. Now you'll be able to do movements where you might want to have a little bit of separation from those handles. Front raises, for example, definitely feel a lot more comfortable when you set it up this way versus just using the single handle. Now moving on, we have the rope attachment. Again, it works the exact same way. Just plug it on in. Next up, we have the short bar. So it's kind of like a mini barbell over here. And this is a great option to use if you're doing a movement that doesn't necessarily need a ton of weight and you just want to slap this on real quick and easy and get something done. So for example, if I'm doing some reverse front rack lunges, well, I could get the whole barbell set up, but when I have the barbell, as you'll see soon, I'm gonna have to step backwards, and that's okay, but it's not as easy as simply just going backwards on this machine. Another case would be like if you wanna do barbell curls, but you don't have to go through the whole setup of getting the entire barbell on, you can just replace the handle with this short bar real quick and start getting those in. Another example is this is a really great option to set up for glute bridges or hip thrusts. So I really like the short bar as it basically provides a much easier way to set up a barbell without having to actually set up the barbell for the times that it makes sense. That being said, there is a full barbell on here. Now, one of the things that comes with this barbell is this a little additional attachment right here. And this is more of like a safety pin of sorts. And the reason they have this is because, if you drop this bar, you don't want it to fall on your toes, or hurt somebody. So just in case of an accident, the worst that could happen really is it's gonna go here. It's not gonna fall all the way with any sort of load to your toes. Now, there are a couple of additional tools here that are to be used with the barbell as well. And these are basically just extensions of the safety rope. So this is like a more of a medium one, and this is more of a long one. And the reason you'll want to use these is because, let's say you're bench pressing or you're squatting, and you just wanna have some kind of safety net just in case something happens. You go too low, you drop the bar or whatever, something even more than just these small safety pins. Well, this allows you to do that. Now, it's gonna be safe regardless if you use these or not, because the way Vitruvian works, as I'll show when we do movements, is it'll get your range of motion before you start a movement. And if you go past that range of motion, it will turn off the loading very quickly. But these are just an additional way to stay safe, which I think is great because Vitruvian Plus allows a lot of load to be lifting. In fact, sometimes you'll be loading more weight with Vitruvian than you ever would with a traditional barbell because with some of the additional modes, like eccentric loading modes that they have on here. So being a little bit extra safe is never a bad thing in my opinion. Next, we have some handles. Now these you'll mostly probably be strapping onto your ankle for glute work, like donkey kicks and that type of thing. Although you can use them on your wrist as well for a different type of feeling and loading for some of your upper body work, especially if you don't want to have to utilize any sort of grip with that upper body work. So it's a pretty cool option to use with that. And then finally, we have this belt. So this belt gets strapped right around you. It's got attachments, which you will need to use those safety attachments to be able to, reach these. And this is an excellent option, again, for weighted squats or lunges or push-ups. There is a lot of really cool ways to utilize that, and you can find all of those movements in the app, which is what we're gonna get into right now. So when you get started on the app, there's gonna be a sort of a welcome screen to help get you going. So there's a welcome get started video that'll help teach you some of the basics around using the Vitruvian Plus. And then the next thing is the set your benchmark or strength assessment, which you could do here, or you can do really anytime. If you go under workout, you'll be able to see the strength assessment and redo it there. Now, I highly suggest doing this strength assessment right away and not skipping it, because the way the Vitruvian Plus is set up out of the box is to make sure that you are safe. And so it won't let you go to anywhere close to its maximal load until you show that you're capable of it. So it'll be very limited at first, and then as you show you can lift more, it'll raise the cap of what you can lift per movement. And so the easiest way to be able to get started with some of the weights that you'll want to be using is just to go ahead and do that strength assessment so it knows the ballpark of what you're capable of, and it will raise those weightlifting caps for you so you can pretty much utilize whatever weights that you want. But you gotta do that strength assessment. One quick note though about that strength assessment is there is one set per movement, and in that set, it'll start you basically at 0 pounds and then just increase the weight every rep until you basically can't do it anymore. And there is no warm up in that strength assessment, which is kind of a problem, but basically you gotta do your own warm up if you want that strength assessment to be legitimate, because otherwise you're gonna get thrown into a max effort squat within like 5 reps of just jumping on the machine, which I don't really suggest. So if you do that strength assessment, I strongly recommend that you warm up prior to it, go into the movement library here, do some warm up sets, that type of thing. Just get your body at least somewhat used to the idea of lifting heavy before you jump into it. Okay, so now that you've got it all set up and you've done the strength assessment so that your weightlifting cap isn't so low, now you might want to start thinking about taking some classes or even jumping into a full program. So if you go to the coaching tab, you'll see various suggested workouts right on the front, and then you can just choose classes or programs from here. On classes, they're kind of arranged in different categories. They have a few daily classes, they have mobility classes and introductory classes, and muscle building and strength building classes. So you can kind of sort through that. It's not super organized here. Like you can't filter the classes by what they're working on. You can, if you want to, search define upper body type classes, and that'll pull up some, but it won't pull up all of them because not every upper body class is named upper something. A lot of them are named maybe like shoulder something or various names to them. So you kind of have to look around. Now, the other nice feature they have here is if you find a class that you like, you can hard it so you can find it again later. And then when you go back, you'll be able to see under coaching, a new tab called favorites, so you can find all of the classes you either liked or want to take right there. Also, you can choose to follow programs, and these range from anywhere from like 4 to 12 weeks in length. And so when you find a program that you think you'll like, you can click on it, you can check out some of the workouts and what you'll be doing in it. And then if you think it's a good program for you, you can join the program, and you'll always be able to see there at the top of your programs. And if you ever want to leave it, you just simply go into that program, hit the 3 little dots on the top right, and select leave program, and you're out of there. Okay, so let's talk about the classes for a second. So when you click on a class, again, you'll be able to scroll down and see everything that you'll be doing in that class, what the movement is, what the equipment that you'll need is, and what type of mode, whether it's like a time under tension or an old school type of program, or whatever it is, you'll be able to see it right here. You'll also be able to see what weights it'll have you set up on for those movements in that class. And again, this is based on your self-assessment or whatever you've done with that movement in the past. And at the top, you can actually adjust all of those weights globally based on how you're feeling that day. So if you're feeling a little beat up and you think those weights look a little tough for you today, you can just slide this line to the left and decrease all of the weights down to as low as 20% off the recommendations. You can also, if you're feeling really good, slide them up to 20% above the recommendations. So usually maybe you'll leave it at default, but depending on how you feel, you could always switch this up. Now, this is something that could change over time, but one of the things I've noticed so far from taking some of these classes is they are very fast paced. They go into it right away, and they do show you what to do and how to do it. And the coaches do a great job of that, but there's not a huge amount of warm up in these classes at all. So just kind of like the strength assessment, just be aware that you probably want to do a little bit of your own warm up before you jump into them if you can. Now, another thing you will notice in these classes that you may like or not like is that there are time caps for a lot of the sets, so that way you stay in line with what the coach is doing. So you'll see like the shoulder press, you have 34 seconds to do that set. So whether or not the coach tells you to do a certain amount of reps or not, that's gonna be the time frame you have to do it in, and then it's just gonna move on. Though you can go back if you want to redo a set if you missed it or weren't able to get in exactly what you wanted during it. So that is always an option. But another option that you can do is instead of taking the class as a class, you can select view as workout. And this will take that same exact workout, but put it into a format that's not coached and that you can control the time and speed of and make more adjustments with. So again, you can adjust the weight based on how you're feeling for that day. And you can choose autoplay or not autoplay. Autoplay just means that once you finish a movement, it'll go into whatever the designated rest is right away, and then it'll start the next movement right away. I personally just like to have control over all of that, so I usually turn autoplay off, and I'll say when I want to start the next set, and I'll say when I'm ready to go, but it's up to you what you want to do. And then you can begin the workout, and you'll see it's not in that same class format anymore, but the movements and the way it's set up is exactly the same. Okay, so that's sort of the class deal. Now let's get into the workout portion where you can do your own workouts and your own training. So here at the top, you'll see any workouts that you've already made, the option to do that strength assessment again, some recommended movements. They're showing some of their V-frame movements. That's a new accessory that's not out yet, but make sure to subscribe to Connect the Watts if you want to see more about that soon. And then if you scroll down here, you'll see all of the exercises they have available. And one of the things about this list is if you favorite any of these movements by clicking on the heart, it will move toward the top. So if there's a lot of movements that you find that you regularly do all of the time, definitely make sure to add them to your favorites so they're much easier to find. But probably the best way is just to search and filter for the movements you are looking for. So to filter a movement, you hit this button on the top right, and you can filter by the type of equipment you want to use or the muscle groups you want to target. So let's say you want to use the handles and you want to target your legs. You just click those two, and now if you scroll down, all of these movements under exercises are going to be movements that utilize handles and that target your legs. Further, you can search any kind of term that makes sense for that movement, and usually it'll show up. So if I type in squat, it'll remove all of the options for that filter that don't have to do a squat. So you'll get like regular squats and split squats and even lunges, which is kind of considered a half squat. So you'll get all of that here, and it's pretty easy to find exactly what you want. Now, because I have a barbell already set up here, I'm gonna pull up a regular deadlift with the barbell so we can discuss some of the options you can choose from when you are actually doing the movement. So when you click on the exercise, you'll see a demo of the exercise, and you can swipe through to see various angles of how it should look. And then this little button right here next to the play button, that's the sound. And so you can enable sounds to play on your phone or tablet per rep. So that way you know when you've completed a rep, and it'll make a slightly different sound when you've completed a set. And this is all really nice to have so that you know exactly where you are. It'll also give you an alert when your rest time is ending, or if you're doing a set by time when that is ending as well. And you have the options to adjust any of that here, which is a new update that was added literally like a few days ago. Now, if you swipe up on the movement, you'll see various modes and options to choose from for that movement. So let's go over some of those now. The most simple of which is the old school mode, which makes lifting on the Vitruvian Plus in that movement very similar to lifting with any regular weight, like a barbell or a dumbbell, as the weight load stays the same rep to rep and throughout the entire movement. But then there are other more high-tech smart weight modes on this, and these modes are things you typically can't really do with traditional weights, which is pretty cool. So pump mode, the way pump mode works is you set the weight, and that weight is going to be the max weight it goes to, but it's going to determine your weight by the speed of your concentric. So concentric is the upper portion of the movement. So imagine you're doing a squat, that's the concentric portion of the movement. So if you do that fast, it'll give you the highest amount of weight that you have selected here. But if you move up slowly, it's going to give you less weight than that to ensure that you get up all the way. Then at the top on the eccentric, it'll keep that weight throughout the entire rest of the movement until you get down to the bottom, which if you rest at the bottom of the movement, it'll deload and you can do it again. Or if you bounce right back up, it'll just keep that load for the most part and make some adjustments based on your speed. There are also options here to add progression or regression per rep. So with progression, you can add up to 7-pound increases per rep of that set, though it does typically cap out at 20 pounds. So if you have it increasing 5 pounds per rep, after the fourth set, it's not going to continue adding weight. It's just going to cap out at that 20-pound increase. Regression works in a very similar way, but it doesn't have a cap, so it'll keep decreasing load throughout your entire set after every rep by whichever amount that you select here. Next up, we have the time under tension mode, and this is pretty much like almost the opposite of pump mode because it determines the load that's going to give you by how slowly you go down. So if you're falling down quickly, it's not going to give you the same load as if you're able to stay in control and go down slowly. Then if you pause at the bottom, it'll take off some of that load for you on the way up. However, if you want to keep that same load that you had on the eccentric on the way up, you can just come up quickly and it won't decrease. So if you pause, it'll take off the load. If you don't pause, it won't take off much of the load at all. Now again, you can add a progression or regression in terms of the weights per rep and within a set. And there is an additional option here under time under tension called beast mode. So if you turn beast mode on, it does two things. One, it'll increase the load at the top of the movement faster than it traditionally does. And then two, it'll decrease the load at the bottom slower than it typically does. So what that means is you need to be really ready for the weight because it's going to ramp up real quickly at the top. And then if you want to decrease the load at the bottom, you're going to have to stay there a bit longer in order for it to do that, which means you're going to have to stay in a position that you may feel a bit weaker at longer in order to deload it, which is an extremely interesting option to add to strength training. Moving on, finally, we have eccentric only. So this does exactly what it sounds like. Again, concentric is the way up, eccentric is the way down. So eccentric only means that you're only going to be loaded on the way down. And at the bottom of the movement, it'll deload all of the weight for the most part. And you can come up to the top of the movement with very little load. And then at the top, it'll again load everything up for that eccentric portion. A very powerful tool to overload and lift actually more than you ever have before on a movement, because you don't actually have to lift it back up. So a really nice option to use in certain circumstances when you're trying to build strength or muscle. So really cool stuff. Now, once you're done figuring out what type of mode and settings you're gonna have for that movement, you also, of course, are going to select how many reps and how much weight you want it to go. Now, it is important to know that even though you have a barbell on there, it treats the two weights separately. So the force here is 98 pounds per cable. So in reality, it's closer to 196 pounds when you're actually lifting it. So I'm not gonna lift that right now because I'm not warmed up, but just keep that in mind when you're selecting the weight. Alternatively, instead of reps, you can just select duration and do as many reps as you would like to within a certain time period. So that's how you set it up. And then when you're ready to go, you just push play, and it'll ask you to do 3 calibration reps. And it'll always ask you to do 3 calibration reps on any movement you're doing. And the reason for this is because it wants to assess what's the top of the movement. So what's the final part of the rep, so it can count your reps, and the bottom portion of the movement, so it knows, in those particular modes when to reload or deload, but also as a safety mechanism to know if you're struggling there or falling below there, that you may need some help. So you'll pull it up and do 3 complete reps of whatever the motion is. After the 3rd rep, at the bottom, it'll start to load on the way up. So the first rep, it loads on the way up during old school training, and then on the way down, because I have it on the old school, it'll stay the same, and it'll just stay the same throughout each of those movements. Now, once I finish 5 reps, it'll turn off the weight, but it turns off the weight, and I'm not sure if I like this or not, but it turns off the weight at the bottom of the movement. So here, it'll deload the weight, and you're done. It'll give you a little score for your strength score, and you can look at the exercise stats and all that, and there you have it. Now, I like sometimes just having a workout in my head and selecting the movements and building that out as I go. But a lot of people prefer just to have a workout set up for them that they created. And so they have a workout creator, and I'm gonna go over that and how to use it now. So at the top of the workout page, you'll see all your previous built workouts, but there's a plus sign here to make your own. So we're gonna make our own, we'll call it Hello World. And then you're gonna start adding all of the exercises that you want. So let's just add alternating lunges, and let's just make it super simple right now, just for the sake of speed. So we'll leave it on pump and 10 reps, and this will be the force. And at the bottom, you can select a rest time for after this movement is completed, anywhere from 0 to 120 seconds. I wish it would go longer, because sometimes you do want a little bit longer than 2 minutes, but you can always just not start the next lift, so it's not a big deal. So let's just say we set it to 30-second rest. Now, if you want to add more than 1 set, you can do that later on when we're fully editing the workout, but you can also do that here just by hitting plus again. Everything here will be the same as where you left it, so just push add, and that's another set, and you can just do that again for a 3rd set. And then let's just scroll down to a bent over cross row. So we're gonna add a set, we'll give it a 30-second rest, and add. And I'm only gonna add 1 so I can show you how to add more sets later on. So those are the 2 exercises we're gonna be doing on there. Though again, you can search and filter and find exactly what you want. When you're ready, push done, and you'll see this list of the workout that you've created. Now, if you see something you don't want, you can delete it by simply sliding the movement to the left, and you'll see a delete button there. Okay, let me show you how to add sets now. So on alternating lunges, I can slide it over here and hit a plus, and it'll add an additional set of the exact same as the other one. And if I want to change that set, so let's say maybe I want to go 10 reps and then 8 reps and then 6 reps, I can adjust each one individually and maybe the weights as well, and I can keep making adjustments to that. And it's a pretty quick process. So I can make sets that way, and let me make a couple more sets of this crossover row because I also want to show you how to superset them together. Because when you're putting the workout together and you're getting the exercises in, there's not really an easy way to say like, I want these two supersetted back and forth. You have to do that here. And you can just do that on the screen by holding a movement and then sliding it up between the other movements. And you can do that with all of them. Or even faster is just hit edit. And then you don't have to hold it to slide it. You can just put your finger on these three little lines. And so I can move this bent over row up. And then I have a superset. It's going back and forth between the two. And it'll do that automatically on here. And I can save the workout and take it anytime. Again, when you are taking the workout, because you set the weights, you can add less or more with that slider if you're feeling better or worse on any given day. Now, under profile, you can sort of get an assessment of which muscle groups you've been using, either for all time or the previous 30 days or several months or week. And there's also a leaderboard, which you can be a part of if you don't want to keep your account private like I do, but you could use that as well to motivate yourself to do more each week or every month. And then also here, there is an option to change the colors. So you'll see there's these colors here. I know some people hate the colors, and so you can just turn those off. I like them. And you can also change the colors. So you can change it to whatever color you feel in the mood in. If you feel a little angry, you can put on red, whatever you would like. And yeah, that's pretty much all you need to know to get started with the Vitruvian Plus. Oh, one more thing, the bench press. So the bench press with the Vitruvian Plus is a little strange. It's a little different because the Vitruvian Plus is elevated. So one side is longer than the other. So that way when you put it on here flat, it's nice and flat. But if you switch it over, it allows you to do like incline bench and incline stuff. And then also you can use it for certain movements at an incline to the side. Like if you're trying to do like Bulgarian split squats or whatever, it's a little easier to use like that. So really cool stuff with the bench press. But let me know if you have any questions about the Vitruvian Plus, anything I missed, anything you want to know. I'd be more than happy to help you out. Still in the process of reviewing it. And if you want to see even more about the Vitruvian Plus, you can see a demo that I did with it like 6 months ago in this video here. As always, appreciate you being here. This is Colin Jenkins with Connect the Watts, and I'll see you next time.